Hi everyone, this is Yeager. I'm a macro option trader. Today is March 7, 2026, Japan time, and 10:46 p.m. It's Saturday, but I wanted you to continue the discussion from the previous episode and talk a little more about Eren. Today's idea might sound a bit crazy, but I have been thinking about something interesting. In the anime Attack on Titan, there's a character named Eren Yeager. If you know the story, Eren basically becomes enemy of the world in order to save humanity. He takes on the role of the villain, so the world can eventually stop him and survive. The idea made me wonder something. What if Donald Trump is playing a similar role in the real world? What if he's acting like an Eren Yeager figure in the global politics? Let me explain what I mean. Right now, people talk about possible military conflict with Iran, but I think the real background of this story is actually AI. AI is rapidly increasing productivity across the entire economy. It is automating tasks and replacing human labor and making production far more efficient. When productivity explodes like this, the natural outcome is deflation. Pricing is go down because if we can produce more with fewer people, the cost of goods and the service drops. In other words, AI could push the world into powerful deflationary environment. And ironically, that might not be what governments want. For decades, economics have said that moderate inflation is healthy for economic growth. Deflation can slow down spending and investment. But AI driven productivity might create something different. What Elon Musk calls abundance. An abundance economy, a world where goods and services become extremely cheap and accessible to almost everyone. That sounds like a utopia, but there is an interesting experiment that often comes up when people talk about abundance. It's called the mouse utopia experiment. Scientists created a perfect environment for mouse, plenty of food and comfortable temperature, no prejudice, no scarcity. At first, the more population exploded, everything looked like a success. But over time, strange things happened. The mouse became lazy, some became aggressive, social behavior collapsed. Eventually, the entire population died out. So the experiment suggests something strange. Too much comfort and abundance can actually destroy society. And that made me think about the future with AI. If AI creates a world where people don't have to work anywhere anymore and everything becomes cheap and abundant, we might accidentally create the same conditions, a comfortable but meaningless society. So the question becomes, how do you balance that? One possible answer is war economics. War creates supply constraints. When war happens, the logistics break down. Energy supply gets disrupted. Trade routes become unstable. All of that creates inflation pressure. So image dynamics. AI push price down through productivity and efficiency, but geopolitical conflict pushed price up through supply shock. Those two foes could partially cancel each other out. And this is where the strains of Hormuz become extremely important. The strains of Hormuz is one of the most critical energy checkpoints in the world. A huge percentage of the global oil flows through the narrow passage. and Iran has a lot of influence over the region. If the Straits of Hormuz were disrupted, even temporarily, oil price could spike dramatically. That would create global energy shock. In other words, a strong inflationary force. So, if the United States pressure Iran, or if tensions escalate in the region, it could trigger is exactly that kind of shock. And that shock might counterbalance the deflationary pressure created by AI. From the perspective, geopolitical conflict could act as a regulation mechanism for the global economy, a way to slow down the arrival of food abundance economy. This is where my stage idea comes in. What if leaders like Trump intentionally play the role of the villain, blame, and just like Yeager, creating tensions, creating conflict, and creating global enemy structure, not because they wanted destruction, but because they believe humanity needs to competition and pressure to continue evolving. If the world becomes a too peaceful, too comfortable, and too abundant, society might stagnate. So maintaining the geopolitical tensions could actually preserve a competitive environment for humanity. Of course, Europe is very sensitive about the energy shock. Countries like France and Spain don't truly support aggressive politics toward Iran because they remember the energy crisis after the Ukraine war. Japan also depends heavily on oil passing through the Straits of Hormuz, so Western countries are not perfectly aligned on this issue. At the same time, if the United States and Israel moved against Iran, Russia and China would likely support Iran indirectly, which means the deeper structure here could simply be another phase of great power competition. The United States on one side and China and Russia on the other. But again, the interesting thing is that this geopolitical tension might also function as an economic balancing force. AI-driven deflation one side, war-driven inflation the other. Of course, this is just my speculation, but I think the concept of abundance will become extremely important when we analyze the global economy in the coming years. People used to talk about the Great Reset in conspiracy theories, but maybe the real meaning of a reset is something simpler. Reset of the value system itself, reset of the how we measure price, leader, and the productivity in AI-driven world. And for the perspective, the current geopolitical structure becomes very interesting. Of course, war is tragic, but many people suffer from it. But when we analyze the structure of the global economy, this moment in history is incredibly fascinating. What we see the media is never the full story. The truth is usually much more complicated. Trying to understand the deeper structure is what makes this moment intellectually exciting. That's all for today. If you enjoy these contents, think of it like going longer production and follow the podcast. See you tomorrow.